And I want to ask you quickly about the cyber cab. There was a lot of talk last night on the call about, the vision of the model where you can sort of, uh, rent out your Teslas as part of the fleet for the cyber cabs down the line. How confident are you in the cyber cabs from a technology perspective? And then what do you think about the whole fleet model that Elon is pitching?
So these are both two separate like shows on its own, right? Like I can talk about Robotaxi and the risks and rewards and human behavior. And I'm in the camp that humans don't change very easily. And we all have our own cars and they're all different. Every time a yellow car comes by, my kids yell, yellow car, everybody wants their own vehicle, and trying to change human behavior, not to mention just how long it would take to make millions of these robo taxis. It will be many years into the future. So I just don't see humans changing. So I think we're going to be driving for the rest of my life. Personally, I'm not giving up driving. If you think I'm riding around in some gold cab everywhere I want to go, that is not the way I see my future versus I wanted a Tesla Roadster that would drive itself. You see what I'm saying?
Mm,
So I think a lot of people aren't giving up their cars. So then this idea of it's going to be like Airbnb is just like a fantasy, because where I live, there's Waymos everywhere already. Like you can take an autonomous ride any minute here in Santa Monica. Like they're
mm.
everywhere. They've already blanketed the cities. So you are already seeing this. And what we're seeing is it's just eating up Uber's business. It's not convincing people to sell their cars when you can buy a Tesla for $500 a month. And if you figure that out, it's about 50 cents a mile to drive a car, the average amount a human drives a year. And right now, taking a cab, like a Tesla Robotaxi, costs $5 a mile,
Mm.
$3 to $5 a mile. So until those numbers make sense economically, people aren't going to do this either. So, you know, I'm not that convinced we're all going to be cab riders in the next 5 years. I'm just not convinced at all. And in fact, I will not be one.
I took my first Waymo this week actually in San Francisco. I was in San
Pretty
Francisco,
cool, huh?
and I took it twice. And the funny thing, to your point about behavior, the funny thing for me was the Waymo was fine. I mean, I took it and I didn't think about it. And then when I was taking an Uber to SFO, yeah, I was sitting in the front seat, and the driver at some point he told me, he said, "Yeah, it's on self driving right now." And then I got scared for some reason. It's weird. He was sitting there, and it's like I was like, "I want you to be driving if you're sitting in the car." But the Waymo, I was totally fine with it anyway.
Well, you
I
just
don't know.
hit Tesla's biggest problem, is that Teslas are not good enough at driving
Yeah,
to sit in the back seat and trust it.
exactly. Yeah.
And a lot of that is because they refuse to add more sensors and radar to the system, and they'll solve autonomy next month if they just change their hardware. That's what I believe. Their software is way better than Waymo's, but their hardware sucks compared to Waymo's, and that's why we feel confident with Waymo, because the Waymo drives confidently. But
Yeah.
full self-driving drives like a 14-year-old. And yeah, you want the monitor, like monitoring. And when I use it, I have to monitor it because I don't trust it. And I'll get in the back of a Waymo and literally go to bed. You see what I'm saying? And so Waymo's won the race. So the idea is, oh, well, Tesla could just like scale so quickly once they solve this. That is also not true. There's a whole infrastructure around taxi that I've gone around and followed Waymo's and gone back to their main base and seen their main base and everything. And dude, that's a full operation. So this idea it's just like Airbnb is exactly how Airbnb works, which is it's not really mom and pop people just renting out their houses. What
It's a
Airbnb
yeah.
has
There's a
become,
there's a
it's a
centralized fleet.
business. It's a
Right.
business. So people are buying fleets of houses and renting them, and they're like bad hotels essentially. So essentially what they're talking about is creating like fleets of Model Ys that will be like bad cab services instead of taking one that's centralized. So I think Tesla is better off just managing the cab service themselves because they can control quality. Remember, quality control is why Uber sucks, because you don't know what you're getting with the driver. You don't know how bad it's going to smell, how bad the driver is, how long they've even been in your city. In a lot of cases, never even driven. So I think there's a big disruption that's going to happen, but it's going to happen to Uber you know, and I think Waymo is the winner here, and I think Tesla can compete if they can get this to work. But Elon even said it in the conference call when they asked him why isn't full self-driving working, and he basically said because where Ross drives is super freaking hard, and we haven't mastered it because people crash there all the time, and he's 100% correct. Where I drive every day, West Los Angeles, he brought up Santa Monica Boulevard in Wilshire, which is right the center of where I'm always driving. And he was talking about these intersections that are like hell, and they are. He's absolutely right. And humans crash every day in LA, and the expectation is these cars aren't going to crash. So there is this higher bar that autonomy has to achieve for humans to trust it. And Waymo's achieved this. It's
Mm,
driving on those roads right now. And so I'm just like, why are you so resistant to accepting that vision only systems is a hard way to do this? Add a few sensors, solve, and we've got this done. And that's what we're going to see with Robotaxi is it's just they'll add these sensors and it'll be solved, and they'll be hopefully launching these things by the end of the year. But this idea they'll be competitive in 50 markets by the end of the year is a joke.
great. Well, Ross, I want to thank you for coming on. That is Ross Gerber from Gerber Kawasaki here on TITV.